Hey guys, this is Ankit and welcome to the Google Cloud Platform Task Series. We are doing a list of basic tasks to get ourselves familiar with the Google Cloud provider, that is GCP. We are following the DevOps Engineer and SRE learning path, also available at cloudskillsboost.google/paths. To get more details, you can always refer to my repository, thecloudterminal01/learn-devops. For today's task, we have the following objectives. First, we will learn how to access Cloud Console and Cloud Shell. We will become familiar with Cloud Console. We'll also become familiar with Cloud Shell features, including Cloud Shell Code Editor. We will use the Cloud Console and Cloud Shell to create buckets, VMs, and service accounts. Other than that, we will be performing a lot of other commands as well in Cloud Shell. The total amount of time we will be spending will be around 20 to 23 minutes. So let's begin. Let's move on to our first subtask, where we will create a bucket with the same name as project ID. So I'll copy the project ID from here. Let's go to Cloud Storage Buckets, create a new bucket. We'll give the same name as our project ID, continue. Let's keep everything as default. Uncheck enforce public access prevention on this bucket and we'll use fine-grained access control. Continue and create. So the bucket is created. Let's move on to our next subtask, where we will create a instance first-VM and allow HTTP traffic. So I'll move to compute engine VM instances, create instance. Let's give the name as first-VM. We will keep the zone as US Central 1C. Let's use E2-micro machine type. We can check the monthly estimate over here. Let's allow HTTP traffic and click on create. In our next subtask, let's create a IAM service account with basic editor role. So I'll go to IAM and admin. Let's move to service accounts. Create a service account. Let's give the name as test service account. Click on create and continue. Let's give the role as basic editor. Continue and done. So the service account is created. I'll do a hard refresh. Now let's go to actions and manage keys, and let's create a key. We'll download it in JSON format. So it's downloaded on my local laptop. We will use this in later part of our subtasks. In our next subtask, let's start exploring the Cloud Shell. So let me click on activate Cloud Shell. At the same time, we can open the editor as well. So I'll click on open editor, open a new window. Let's go back, open terminal again. And over here, we will have our editor ready. So now let's set up these environment variables first. We'll set up the first environment variable with the name of the bucket that we created earlier. Let me copy this and set up over here. Let's set up the second environment variable now. This has to be unique, so let's copy this again and give second some random ID. Let's set the region as US Central 1. Now I'll move the credentials file that I downloaded earlier to the Cloud Shell. I'll be using this particular option, upload, for the same. So let me upload it and come back. The file is downloaded. I will rename the file to credentials.json. Now let's create a second cloud storage bucket with the name that we gave over here. The bucket is created. So if we go back and check, we will see the second bucket is created as well. Now we'll create our second instance using Cloud Shell. For that, first let's get the regions and zones using this command. So let's select one zone from this list. I will select US Central 1C. We'll set this as the default zone. This will be the name of our second instance. And finally, let's create the instance. We are creating E2 standard instance. Let's wait for this to get created. This is complete. Now let's list the instances. So now we have two instances over here. We can go back to VM instances and refresh. We should see that there are two instances. Also, you will notice that only the first instance has this link auto-generated and not the second one. This is because when we created the first instance, we allowed the HTTP traffic. So let's move on to our next subtask. Now we will create an IAM service account using command line. We will give the name of the account as test service account 2. So let's go back to the Cloud Shell. And run this command. Let's go to IAM service accounts and click here. Let's refresh this. And we see that the second service account is created. Now let's give the service account a viewer access role. So I will execute this command. This should give the service account a viewer role. So let's go back and validate. I'll click on IAM. And we see that the second service account has viewer role. Let's move on to our next subtask. We will work with the cloud storage in our Cloud Shell. let's copy a picture of cat from Google provided storage bucket to our Cloud Shell. So I'll copy this. These are the files before running the command, and let's run this now. So cat.jpg is copied. Let's copy this file from our Cloud Shell to the first bucket. We'll go over here, click on the first bucket. It does not have any data as such. So let's go back and run this command. The copying is complete. So if I go back and refresh, let's refresh once again. Yeah. So we have cat.jpg in our bucket now. Now let's copy the file from the first bucket to the second bucket. So let's go back over here, click on the second bucket, and we'll see that it does not have any files yet. So let's go over here, run the command. Let's go back and refresh. And we have the file in our second bucket as well. Let's move on to our next subtask, where we will set the access control list for a cloud storage object. The object for us is cat.jpg. Let's check the access control list first, which is already set. Now it shows that the following entities are included in our access control list and have access to our object. So let's change the object to have private access. So let's go back and verify that our access control list is now changed for the same object. Now the updated access control list shows that only the following entity has access to the object. Let's move on to our next subtask. Let's run this command to view the current configuration. It says that the active account now is this one. We will use our credentials.json file to change the active account to the IAM account which we created earlier. So I will use this command, and this will change the active account to a new one. And let's see whether it is changed or not. It is changed to the IAM service account that we created using UI earlier. Let's see who are the authorized accounts in the Cloud Shell. There are 2, and the active account now is this one. Now let's verify that the test service account that we created earlier, whether it can access the object or not. It should not be able to access the object because earlier we changed the access control list, and the only entity that had access to the object was with the student ID. So as expected, we are not able to access it. Now let's see whether this test service account can access the object in the second bucket or not. So I'll copy this, and this should be able to access the account because the second bucket object does not have access control list edited. So as expected, this service account is able to access the object in the second bucket. Now I will change the active account back to the original one. The username is my student ID over here, which I have been assigned by Quick Labs. Let me copy this command. Now, if you remember, this was the account that was included in the access control list of the object that is present in the first bucket. So if we run this command, we should be able to now download the object. As expected, we are able to download it because we, as in this ID, which is active right now, is included in the access control list of the object which is present in bucket 1. Now let's make the first bucket readable by everyone, including unauthenticated users. So I'll go back and run this. So if we go back to our bucket now and view the first bucket, we will see that the object cat.jpg is now public and has a public access URL. So we can click on this and we can visit the cat picture. So I'll go back over here, save this URL. Let's move on to our next subtask now. I will clone this repository. And create a directory test. Let's move on to our editor and it should have everything. Let's refresh this. Now let's add this line. Cleanup.sh file. It's added. Let's go back over here and create a new file inside the folder index.html, and let's add the following HTML code snippet. We will replace this URL with this one. Now let's log into our first VM and run these commands. Let's retry this and it should work. Meanwhile, we will copy the index.html file from our local to our instance. When I say local, I mean the Google Cloud Shell. So I'll go over here. We are in the same directory containing the file index.html. Let me run this command. Yes, we want to continue. And the file is copied. So the file is copied now. Let's move on to our next subtask and copy the file from here to var html directory. And now we should be able to visit the external IP of the instance, and we should see the index.html page that we created. So I'll go back to VM instances and click on this, and we are able to view the image of cat. So this completes all of our subtasks for today. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next one.